show, so get rocking up. So let me break it all down for you. I ain't never giving up, I ain't never giving up. Taking that crown.
Hello everyone, FPL Phillips here. I'm going to be taking you through my top differentials for game week 10. And getting straight into it, my first one of the three is going to be Joshua King, who off the back of a hat-trick against his former club, registered the highest XG of any player in the game in game week 9. Even when Mohamed Salah, Mason Mount, the likes of these players were scoring hat-tricks, it was Joshua King who came in on top. And he faces a Southampton side whose only clean sheet in the last 4 weeks was against a much weakened Leeds side at home, obviously without Rafinha and without Bamford for that game. Emmanuel Dennis picked up his 5th yellow card of the season in game week 9, meaning that he's suspended for that fixture at Vicarage Road, which leaves Josh King with very little competition for the forward spot. And could we see the Englishman, the region, come through and find some form by bagging his 4th goal in 2 games, or with a little luck from the FPL gods, potentially even a bit more? Obviously, those Watford fixtures are pretty terrible from game week 10 onwards, so maybe just a 1-week punt if you're considering it. But with a lot of injuries at the moment, could he be one to go for? Could he not? If you're thinking about bringing him in, he does look like he's a big, high-risk, high-reward player. And with his 0.1% ownership increasing to 0.3% ownership, still a tiny number, but it is hard to keep ignoring Maxwell Cornet, even if he does play for Burnley. The Ivorian's fast and exciting play style almost goes against every single thing that Sean Dyche stands for. With the £6 million midfielder registering an XG per 90 overall of 0.49 since joining the Clarets, which is a pretty high number for any Burnley player. Burnley themselves play host to Brentford, who despite looking relatively tight at the back throughout this season, conceded 2 goals to a Leicester side who in fairness seem to be finding a decent bit of form. With a lot of options building up in midfield at the moment, perhaps going for someone with a very low ownership like a Cornet could be the man to go for. And actually my third pick of the bunch is going to be another midfielder, a very similar price at just 5.9, so 0.1 less than Cornet. Nathan Redmond has the exact same ownership at just 0.3%. Redmond registers the highest expected assists out of any midfielder across the entire league across the last 2 game weeks, and he's facing a Watford side with the 3rd worst expected goals conceded in the league across the last 4 weeks. Funnily enough, Manchester United are one of those teams who perform worst defensively, so yeah, if you take that into consideration, Watford seem to be pretty bad, but still not as bad as Man United. You can hear the pain in my voice as a United fan from this week. But nevertheless, with Armstrong out of favour potentially, and Brozier in injury doubt, it looks like Redmond's probably the most solid option to go for out of that Southampton side if you're looking to go for a pick who's most likely to get you a start this week, but still has some very tasty underlying stats. So that's going to wrap up my differentials for Game Week 10. Thank you, Penguin, for having me on. And it's been a pleasure. It's been your boy, FPL Phillips. And I'll catch you later.
Hey guys, FPL Nacho here from FPL Fan Show. Big shout out to FPL Penguin for having me on. Really do appreciate it. And Game Week 10 differentials, who am I going to go for? Well, I'm going to pick out one in particular. And this is going to be a guy that is completely flying under the radar. And rightly so, because of the performances of the likes of Phil Foden. And I'm going to be picking his midfield partner in Ilkay Gundogan. Now, I know he hasn't necessarily been playing enough recently to justify a pick in your FPL teams, but at 7.2 million, nearly $1 million cheaper than Phil Foden, I really think that we're forgetting how good this guy is, and somebody that Pep Guardiola has trusted over the last few seasons, someone that stepped up in the absence of the likes of Kevin De Bruyne in seasons gone by. And he put in a great display against Brighton with that 10-point haul, but it's worth noting that he had an expected FPL points of 9.94, so really showing that he delivered on the underlying stats, which is something I always want to see from an FPL asset. Now, he only had one shot on target, and comparing that to Phil Foden's 8, then it's very hard to justify Gundogan as a pick. However, when we're looking at differentials, I really do think that this guy ticks all the boxes. At 2.3% ownership, I think if you want to go really against the grain, then I do think that he is a brilliant option. Now, if I'm telling you to go Gundogan or Foden, of course I'm going to say Phil Foden, but I really do think that Gundogan should be definitely getting more talking about over the next few game weeks. And with 4 attempted assists against Brighton and an XG of 0.89, I'm not sure why people aren't talking about Gundogan. So 7.2 million, 2.3% ownership. If you want to go a little bit different over game week 10 and beyond, I think Gundogan's your man.
Hi FPL Penguin, thanks for allowing us back on your channel once again. And of course, I'm going to run through my thoughts on the game coming up against Chelsea. Just a quick video, of course, and I'm going to talk about a few players that I think you should pick for your fantasy teams this week for the Newcastle versus Chelsea game. Now, obviously, the main players that you should be looking at is Alan Saint-Maximin. Obviously, as always, he's a really good player to have in your fantasy team, especially with the way he can take on a man for fun. So he'll definitely be a one that you want in your fantasy team for this game against Chelsea. Also, another player that you will want in your team, and if you haven't got him, then you're missing out, because you definitely need Callum Wilson. Absolutely on fire of late. He's got 4 goals in 5 Premier League games, 6 in 6 in the Premier League, all told for Newcastle as well. And you know, if you don't have him in your team, if you don't have Callum Wilson in your team, then you're definitely missing out there, because he is absolutely on fire. In my thoughts going into the game against Chelsea, you know, you can see that over on my channel on match preview for that game, which will be coming out on the channel probably today or tomorrow, or depending, of course, whenever you see this video go up on FPL Penguins channel. And to be honest, you know, it's going to be one of them games going to have to hunker down, see what we can do in it. You know, obviously we've got all the money in the world, we're the richest club in the world, you know, with these brand new Saudi owners, but we just don't have that finished article squad quite yet. You know, it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time, to be honest, to get rid of all of the stink that has been left behind by the parasite that once owned it. Of course, we've only just gotten rid of the cabbage as well, so we've got to get past that whole factor as well. And of course, this is only the second game in charge as caretaker manager as well for Graham Jones, or Jonesy as Jodies like to call him. So we'll get to see how he goes about setting up the team, hopefully in his own style this time, because we did see, you know, he did set up against Palace in a similar style to, of course, Bruce, which I did talk about on my channel. And, you know, to be honest, he didn't really have much time to put in his own game plan, adapt his own game plan to the team in that. So, you know, you can't really blame him for the way the Palace game went. And to be honest, you know, we could have ended up coming away from that one on the end of a defeat, 2-1 defeat as well to Palace, if not for making a very good decision this time around, which is very unusual for us Newcastle United fans to be on the end of a good decision from VAR. But let us know your thoughts anyway down in the comments below. Just a quick video for my good mate FPL Penguin, and I'll see you all next time. However, lads.
Hiya, Rhys here from Fantasy Manager Weekly. Check out the channel if you haven't already. My good friend FPL Penguin has asked me to come up with 1 or 2 differentials for his show today on YouTube. And there's only really one I can recommend to you. I've brought him into my team already. I brought him in last week. His name's Brian Mbeumo. I think that's his first name, Brian. His second name's definitely Mbeumo or Mbomo, however you want to pronounce it. He's only owned by 4.2% of the game. He's a midfielder in FPL, but he plays up front for Brentford. He's cheap, 5.5 or 5.6 million at the moment. And he plays striker. I don't know if I mentioned that. He's a midfielder in FPL and plays up front. Brentford have some really good fixtures, and their data is really good as well. They're decent defence, so he's got a chance of getting that extra 1 point for the clean sheet. But he's also got an extra 1 point for the goal, right? He's playing up front basically with Tony, and Tony's owned by like 16.5% of the game. He's hit the woodwork more than any other player in the game as far as I know. So it's just a matter of time before Mbeumo starts getting those hauls for very, very cheap money. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Hello and welcome back. I'm the FPL Penguin, back again with another video for you all. Today's video it's a bit of a collab video with some other amazing FPL managers out there. Do check them out. I'll leave the links to their Twitters and everything YouTube's below. But we're on to mine now. Differentials to watch, to look out for. Penguins picks. These players have probably been mentioned already, but I hope you have enjoyed this video so far. If you have, hit the like button and do consider subscribing. Without any time to waste, without any time to lose, Let's get straight into it. So I'm going to start off with my first red hot differential pick. We're hearing about the news. Raya out for a couple of months. Wishing him a speedy recovery. He's Alfred Brentford. Been a key man for Brentford. And so they'll have I don't know who the other one's, Fernandez, his name. We'll probably have a look at him, might not, who knows. But we're going to be talking about one of these differentials, red hot favourites, in my opinion, to look out for Game Week 10. I'm going to start off with Maxwell Cornet, or Cornetto. I really, I think he's a lovely one to go for. 6 million. He's a bit pushing it, but I've been watching his highlights, his goals against Leicester and Southampton. He looks very good. He's starting to get the minutes now, get the starts for Burnley. Played for about 4 games now, and 3 goals now. He's looking very juicy, very good. 3 bonus points in his last game, his first bonus points for Burnley this season. And I feel with Raya out, could they possibly break, score against at least 2 goals against them. I think he's a lovely differential to go for. I really do think so. I know he's got Chelsea next. He's got a lovely run after that. But I think against Brentford at home, Burnley have been pretty 50-50 this season. They've been a tough team to battle against, haven't they? Pretty much, hard to score a lot of goals against them, and they have gone up against other teams and scored goals against them, like you see Leicester, Everton, Southampton, 2 goals there. And I think Cornet, we're going to call him that in a very suave way. I think he could be a very good player to go for. Very lowly owned. He was at 0.2 when I last looked. He's at 0.3% now, and I really do think he is definitely a player that you should be looking out for. But if you want to go for a cheeky punt, I know that all these injuries coming through Rafinha and Buemo, we're hearing Rafinha could possibly make the Norwich game now, but if he is out, Rafinha or like I said, in Buemo, both in the same price bracket as Cornet, definitely have a look at him. I think he's a lovely one to go for this game in particular. Another nice differential to go for is Jared Bowen. Now he's at 1.3% owned. His price just a bit more than Cornet at 6.3 million. I think he's a lovely one to go for. Just look at the stats right here. He's got 1 goal and 3 assists to his name so far this season. And in that time because we know Ben Rama and Fornals, especially Ben Rama, kind of fizzled out just after Game Week 4, at the start of the season, that he was doing good along with Fornals. Both then started fizzling out a bit, but Bowen seems to be a nice one to eye. Fixtures wise, we'll look at assist wise against United, both Uniteds. Then he got a goal in Game Week 7 against Brentford, and he got assists against Everton. He's getting an average of 90 minutes, so he's definitely starting games. And he's got Aston Villa next, who are looking a bit shaky, especially in that defence. We can bring an Aston Villa player up, for instance. Look at the fixtures right here. They conceded 3. 1 there, 3 goals there. And they just seem to be conceding quite a lot of goals. Aston Villa at the moment conceded 3 at home to Wolves. And West Ham, we know what they're like with Antonio. Antonio's looking, really sharp. But I'm talking about Bowen here. I think he's a lovely differential to go for. He's relatively still, cheap. A nice one to go for. Same price bracket as Cornet from Burnley. And I think he's a lovely one to go for as well. If we talk about long term, same as the Burnley fella, I wouldn't really go a long term, but for Game Week 10, as we're talking about, definitely a lovely one to go for. As we know, Villa looking shaky at the back, and Antonio, he's all goals, and maybe Bowen might continue to supply him with some good assists. Who knows? And might get a cheeky goal himself. So definitely look at Alfred Bowen. Hwang. He's got about 4 goals to his name so far this season for Wolves. 2 against Newcastle, 1 against Watford, 1 against Leeds. He's got Everton next, so leaking in a lot of goals. A lot of pressure on Benitez. Cheers, Benitez. We know what you're doing. You're doing it for Liverpool. Thank you. But honestly, though, I think he's a lovely one. He's very sharp. Jimenez not really hitting the target. I know he's come back from that big head injury, and but Hwang is definitely one to consider. He's definitely the man on form. He's definitely converting his chances into the back of the net. So 4 goals to him. Definitely want to consider nearly to 10%. Not even 10%. 5.7. Just a bit cheaper than Pookie, but definitely want to consider a really good one to go for the game week. Definitely.
So let me break it all down for you. I ain't never giving up, I ain't never, I'm taking that crown from you.